Okay, so I said I would come back with another video. Now, the topic of this video is living at home with ADHD, living at home with your parents as a millennial, as a 30 something, as a Black woman or a Black man, or whatever you identify as. And it's mostly about age and the stages that you're out in life and having ADHD. That's what I really want to focus on with the living at home with your parents thing. Now, this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time. Ask any of my closest friends, and they'll know that I actually do talk about this a lot, especially my feelings, emotions, and depression around my living situation for a long time. All right, so if I go through the timeline again, I'm at 17. I moved to New York from South Carolina. I stayed there for 13 years. At the age of around 28 or 29, I moved back to South Carolina with my parents. And about 6 months later, I moved to Charlotte and lived there for 2 years with a partner who eventually became my fiance. And then we ended up not staying together, but I moved back home. Now, maybe about 4 years after that, I actually moved back to New York for 6 months for a teaching gig and decided that that was not for me. And then I moved back to Colombia. And so now everyone's like, "Are you back? Are you back?" And I'm just like, "Until further notice," because I actually got a job offer that is pending and up in the air. It's just kind of up there. And I'm waiting for some things to kind of come together before I would relocate again, which I'm still not sure that I'm going to do. So I'm here now and I'm making the best of it. But let me tell you, that first time that I moved back home, now, again, remember, I did not know anything about ADHD at the time, did not realize that I had it, did not know that I was experiencing symptoms of it, did not know that I was already trying to self treat and self medicate from in various ways, positive and negative ways. Um, I did not know, I had no cognizance of it. So when I first moved back home, I was feeling very low and down about myself. And this is one of those things where I went to research to try to see if anyone else was feeling the way that I felt, experiencing what I felt. And what I found is that they say even since the 70's, students have been moving back home with their parents. Um, Roughly 40%, maybe 30, 40%, but like a large number. It wasn't necessarily half or most, but it was enough to where it was considered pretty common. And it wasn't a big deal. I actually like found a book that had that statistic because I needed validation at the moment. And so the relationship with my parents was okay, but I had culture shock, you know? I mean, I was used to living on my own. I was used to coming and going without saying anything to anyone, and I was not used to driving. I couldn't even drive when I first moved back home. I really was experiencing a huge transformation, and it did result in depression for me. Now, I'm not gonna say I was clinically depressed, but it was like a situational depression. Um, I just had to cope with it, and I coped with it in certain negative ways. It was one of the first times I feel like I really experienced social anxiety as well because all my friends were in New York, and the people who I felt really truly understood who I am now and some of just the ways that I am were not here. It took me years to make friends, and I kind of just clung to my parents in terms of like really just trying to understand them. But also really still holding a lot of judgment and resentment towards them and remembering some of the ways that I was raised and some of the things that I felt like I kind of lived out as a result of them raising me. Like I felt like I could have been different, and I kind of felt like they enabled me. So it was kind of a catch-22, if I'm to be honest. I was like accepting the help, but begrudgingly, and I wasn't really as grateful as I could have been. um, and so there's that. Another thing that happened that I think was actually really good, but kind of negative in the way that it came out, was that I was like really on this health kick, especially since I was experiencing issues with fibroids. So I was all about eating healthy. Right before I moved back home from New York, I stayed a couple of days at this woman's house, this Russian woman's house in Queens. Or maybe she was Polish or something, but she was like Eastern European, and she like was doing, she had like cured herself of breast masses or breast tumors, and she um, basically healed herself with natural foods and different things. She had a infrared sauna in her home, and I met this woman named Claudia who was homeless at the time. Was she homeless at the time? I don't know, but she was just kind of bouncing around and like doing her free spirit thing. Had just came up from Florida or something like that, but she was actually really nice and took me to this woman's home, and we just ate clean foods, and I just did a whole cleanse. And so my period was lighter after those couple of months, but of course I got back into the habits of eating meat, eating fast food, eating processed foods, but I also melded that with my knowledge of natural foods, and I Im- imprinted my parents with a lot of good information, so now their eating habits are a lot better. So I feel like I kind of contributed positively in that way. So I still got a job even through not being able to drive, and also um, having my heavy cycles. And I was working at Trader Joe's at the time, and I was lifting a lot of heavy things. My muscles got really toned in my legs. But, I didn't like that environment after a while because I was not able to get on time be on time as often as I wanted to. Like I said, ADHD makes it really difficult to do the same thing over and over and over again, especially being on time, because it messes with your perception of time. You're not able to estimate how long something is gonna take, and you may think like, "Oh, all you have to do is get up earlier." Well, it's like I needed a lot of free time as well. Like I needed time to let my brain kind of rest and do other things. So I'm not able to stay locked into a regimen and completely commit an extra hour of my time several times a week just to get somewhere on time. Like it just didn't work for me. So that was a challenge, but also what was a challenge was, the fact that there were so many Black people employed, but there was no Black people in upper management. I mean, I didn't like that either because all the upper management was in the store and there was, like, no Black people there. But yet there were Black people who were really good at their job, who were very effective at their job, and I saw that, and they were still employees. So that was weird, and I did not like that environment. Um, but the other thing that I didn't enjoy, what was it? Oh, one of the things that I experienced rather that was good was that I think they had a really good like health kind of plan or benefits or whatever, and I was able to get FMLA for the situation with the fibroid. So I had to coordinate with my doctor in New York who saw me, and that was actually at a free clinic at the time. They had in New York, I feel like their free healthcare is like way better than what South Carolina has. I mean, I was able to go see like a really nice facility at 14th Street, and she was already recommending that I get surgery, but of course I was resistant to it at the time. But I was able to see her for free, and I think it was a free or sliding scale clinic. And at the time, um, I was unemployed in the last month. No, was I unemployed in the last month that I left New York? Yes. Yes, I was. Okay. So, um, I was able to call out when my periods were too heavy and I wasn't able to really walk or stand or barely lift anything heavy because I was also anemic at the time as well. So, I mean, it was a lot going on. Like I really was struggling and going through a lot at that time. So living at home was a real challenge in terms of my self-esteem, but it was also good thing because it was nurturing and it was a place where I could cook a lot and explore. And I did reconnect with some friends that I knew from high school. But I feel like, it was good, but we weren't really as close. And then, you grow up and you grow apart from people and you move on. And I just feel like we just didn't have a lot of the same, I mean, probably a lot of the same core values, but, our beliefs were just so different. Sometimes it just becomes stressful to continue to have a conversation with someone who you just disagree with so much. So you just have to learn who to say what to. And that's one of the things I had to learn with living with my parents. I had to learn like what conversations would be more productive and which conversations really wouldn't be. I mean, after all, like what is your goal at the end of the day? So once my goal actually became peace, once I began to be humbled by the experience and learning to love myself throughout it all and didn't look at it as me failing, I was able to actually open up, have more gratitude, and then have a better relationship with myself, everyone around me, and my parents as well. So I'm kind of owning this situation now because when I moved to Charlotte and then things didn't turn out the way that I had expected, even though I knew I wasn't gonna stay living in Charlotte because I did not like Charlotte at all. Um, I just didn't like it. I came back home and really felt bad, but I felt determined. That's when I got my surgery. Um, that's when because I did take a semester off from school. So that's when I got back in school. That's when after I, healed from the fibroid surgery, I got back into working in nonprofits. I got into after I left that job because it was stressful and not manageable, but again, ADHD is playing a role in all of that. I got into subbing in the schools, and I've just kind of been going on a journey and a path. So, um, it did get difficult, but I felt like with their understanding that, hey, she's gonna figure it out eventually, like, she's really smart. There's no way that she's gonna continue to make some of the same mistakes, and here's the thing, my biggest mistake was not knowing myself and continuing to beat myself up and try to fit myself and bend myself into a shape in which I did not belong. Like, trying to be something I'm not, trying to go to these jobs that require me to be somewhere for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. Like, I began to learn. In the last video, I talked about designing my life. When I say those things, I used to feel so I used to say it confidently, but deep down inside, I felt like I had to be indignant about it and be like, "Well, this is what I'm saying, it works for me." When really it's a cry for help to say, like, "I'm different and I need to be different and I need to live a different life because I'm simply not able to effectively execute whatever parameters you're trying to set on me." I think it's a real lesson for the world. And of course, work is changing and there's a lot of jobs that are hiring remotely and you're working from home, but don't let it fool you because to get paid well to do anything, you do have to have a skill, I believe. You have to be really good at what you do. So I finally committed to writing because I was always good at that and I only want to get better. So, like I said, 2020 is the year of mastery, and I'm very confident about that. So living at home, I mean, ever since, I will say, the partner that I always talk about, and let me just say, I have other people in my life because I don't want, like, other people watching this, they who know me personally to feel left out. Like, I have some very special people in my life who really love on me and adore me, but this person is where I live, so they are particularly helpful in this process of me understanding, coming to terms and reconciling a lot of my guilt and shame and depression about living at home again as an adult. And he just told me something very simple. He said, "I know you're never going to settle for anything less than the best." So the first time I moved to New York, he was just like, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this?" I would never tell you not to do what you want to do, but just make sure that this is really what you want. I'm so happy for you. This is amazing. And then the second time that opportunity came up again, he's like, "Are you sure that this is what you want to do?" I mean, basically just encouraging me to check out everything, be very clear about what the scope and the benefits are. Be clear and be sure to negotiate any opportunities that come to you and be sure that you feel into it and this is a hard decision. I got one hand on my gut, one hand on my heart because this is how you're going to make your decisions. And I feel good to have someone who's physically here in the present to be able to encourage me to make those kind of decisions. And another amazing thing that he did is kind of brought me into this beautiful, amazing, nurturing, supportive, artistic community that is beautifully flawed and imperfect and so helpful to my growth. So that has been one of the things that has made me feel like, hey, if I don't ever move back to New York, or because I don't wanna really experience another New York winter. I mean, come on, like, who's out there like, "Yeah, I want winter." Like, no, no one's doing that, but, um, where was I? I lost my train of thought. Let's see, what was I saying? What was I saying? This beautiful artistic community is one of the things that I feel that if I don't, because I don't see myself living here, like, 25 years straight. I do see myself living outside the country at some point and experiencing that. But even if I have to stay here for a while, it feels really good to know that there's an artistic community that I can be a part of and grow in. And then I also have several friends who are here now who also have connected to some of my friends up in New York. And then I still have those connections in New York and other people around the world. So that is fantastic. That has helped me immensely too because I'm building a life outside and I can now envision, okay, I can get a place and I can have little functions and serve people from my home and my place and apartment. And so, I can see a house out in the country. Now I realize that comes with a lot of animals and creatures. And I'm like, okay, I say that I'm a nature girl and I am. I love being in nature. It's very helpful for me and the way my brain works, I think it's helpful for everybody, but they say it's like especially soothing to the ADHD brain. They call it green time, and there's like another type of green time that we can talk about. But as far as nature, there's green time, and it's like they say it's as effective as ADHD medication. So go figure. It's really important that we go outside and spend time in nature. But that said, I don't I don't wanna have to deal with a lot of creatures. If I could live with someone who can deal with that, that's perfect. Out in the country, I feel like I would love that, and I could twirl around naked in my backyard with nobody to bother me. That sounds like a total goal. But, until then, I'm here and I'm perfectly at peace with that in a way that I never have been before. So if your challenges with ADHD have caused you to have to go back home again so that you can get the rest, and the, reevaluation time, and the reset time that you need because you've been spiraling in and out of different jobs, or you just were in a job for a long time, but it really wasn't effective for you, and you want to find something new, you want to start a new business. And this is not just for people with ADHD, let me tell you. This could be someone with bipolar depression or anxiety as well. So I'm calling those the big four: ADHD, bipolar depression, and anxiety. Maybe it's already out there, but to me, those are the four most common mental illnesses that we do need to talk about. Um, but our society is not really set up for you to take breaks. So if you don't have that familial support, it can be really difficult for you. Some people end up homeless. They do because they just can't sustain the cost of living wherever they are. Um, and they break down out of employment and income before they can set up the proper arrangements to be able to survive smoothly and transition smoothly into a period of reset. So if that is your case, then, I just wanna encourage you, like, don't feel that don't feel you're a failure. You need to really talk down those negative voices and know that they they aren't true, you really are. I'm gonna look right into the camera. You are important, and your worth is not based on how much you produce. You need to get that out of your head. Even if you're a man, your worth is not based on how much you produce. And that is a huge mentality shift for me because I did not always feel that way. Okay. But I'm realizing now, just with the way the world is set up, for me as a Black person as well, for you as a Black person, if you're watching and you are, or even if you're an immigrant or something like that, like I can't imagine having a mental illness and having to deal with some of the challenges that people have to face, in the way that they're discriminated against, you know? It's like it's hard enough, but add on all these other layers and you see how, you know, you really should be giving yourself a pat on the back. Um, if you want to survive and you want to have a positive impact on the world, just know that you're on your way to that. You definitely are. It just takes time. This is a reset period for you, and that's okay. All right, I'm fully exhausted. So, um, it's time to go. That was my little video about um, living at home with ADHD, living at home with my parents, and how I'm rebuilding what this reset time has been for me and the journey to getting here. You can put all the questions that you want in the comments. You know, let's be compassionate towards each other's experiences. Let's ask questions and keep the conversation going. Comment, like, and subscribe to this video and this channel. I'm doing this ADHD video series, and I do want to explore some other topics on the channel, but I'm really taking my time because I put a lot of thought into it. I haven't really written down any plans except a long list, but I really have a vision for how I want this channel to go, and there's just more to say. So let's keep the conversation going. Peace.